Hi, in this video, we're going to take a look at the measures of central tendency, mean, median, and mode, as well as the measure of spread, which is range. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to jump in and start right with mean. And sorry about that, I meant to kind of cover this up. So mean. And a mean is the average. That's another word for mean is average. It's the sum of the data in a list where you divide the number of items on that list. That's kind of the definition of mean. Now, this is a lesson that I have previously put together, so I have it already down on paper, and I'm just going to kind of talk about it, and I'm going to highlight certain things. I'm going to add um, certain things to it as we work through it. And at any point, be sure to kind of pause it, take down notes, make sure that you understand the difference between mean, median, mode, and range. These are things that will be found not only on your GED Math test, but most likely on your science and social studies test as well. So we're going to jump in with mean. And we've already taken a look at the definition of it. And so now we want to take a look at how do we find the mean? So, in other words, what is the how? How do we find the mean? And the first thing that we need to know is that we're going to find the total of the data. In other words, depending on what it is, what the problem is, we will either simply add up all the numbers, or maybe sometimes first we might have to multiply if we have a frequency chart. And so we'll get into that later. But we find the total of the information and then we divide that total by the number of items in the data set. And so that's really the how. What we do, we're going to take a look at an example here and scoot this up just a little bit. Here is an example. We've already kind of worked through it, but it is a data set of numbers. We have four numbers, 5, 3, 8, and 4. And so if we find the total of those numbers, you'll see that we have 20. And we have four items. We have, the 5, the 3, the 8, and the 4. So that's four total items. So we'll take 20 divided by 4, and that gives us 5. And so that's how we find the mean. Sometimes it says, watch out. There's a tip here. It says, watch out for frequency tables. And an example of a frequency table is when you see something like this, where you have, this might be an example of if I took a survey of students and said, what is your favorite color? Do you like red better, orange better, or pink? And on the right-hand side, you're going to see that I tally them all up. So that's an example of a frequency table. So that you'll GED is good. They will have uh, demonstrate how to find mean in different ways. And one of the things that they like to do is they like to have frequency tables. So let's take a look now at an example. And I'd like you to go ahead and pause the video and work through this. And then I'll come back and we'll solve it together. Okay, let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. This is an example. It's a student. Her name is Susan. She has taken all of the four GED test scores, and they were 148, 156, 148, and 160. And it's asking what is her average score. And we know that when we have the word average, that really means to find the mean, and we have to take the total of the data, in which we've got numbers here. So we're simply going to add up all those numbers and take my paper away here now. So we've got 148 plus 156 plus 148 plus 160. And you want to be careful when you're doing that, whether you're doing it by hand or using your calculator, that you are getting all of the numbers. One of the Common errors when we're working with problems like this is that we miss a number. So we're going to add up all those. We're going to be careful about that. And then we're going to divide it by the um, total number of items, which is going to be 4 because there are 4 GED tests. When we add those numbers, we get 612. And then we're going to divide that by 4. And so the average score that Susan got was a 153. And so that is the average score or the mean score. Okay. Um, let's go on. We're going to take a look at the next um, item, and that's going to be median. And let's go ahead and cover that up again. And median, when I think of median, I think of like the median strip in a road. And so it's going to be the centermost. So median is centermost, the centermost area. Let me make sure I'm spelling this right. The centermost. When you think of median, always think of a median strip. And the thing about, you can't find the middle. They can't find the median of a road until the road is built. And so that's the one thing to keep in mind when we're working with median, is that we need to um, arrange all of the information in order. And so let's take a look and see how we do that. So again, the definition is that it is the centermost number in an ordered list. And notice how I've got ordered all in caps, and that's because you need to put the numbers in order. If you don't do that, you most likely will not get the median number. Um, so now it's the how. How do we find the median? And let's take a look at the steps to do that. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to arrange all the data, or should I say data? I'm always mispronouncing that. All the data in numerical order. And you can typically do that. Typically, we will say order it from lowest to highest number, but it really doesn't matter when you're finding the middle number or the median. But for me, it just makes sense to do it from smallest to largest. And so that's usually what I will tell my students. And then the middle number is the median. It's the median number. When you take a look and find that middle number, you're going to have an equal um, number, if you will, amount of items on both the right and then the left side of that middle number. But there is a but here. But sometimes when you do that, when you arrange them, and then you find that middle number, you're going to notice that you end up having two numbers in the middle. That typically happens when you have an even number of items. And then what you have to do is what we call a mini mean. Basically, you're just simply going to add the two numbers and then you're going to divide it by 2. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. So let's take a look at an example of median. And here's our first example here. And again, if you find that I'm going a little bit too quick as I'm going through this information, pause it, rewind it a little bit. Make sure that you're taking down notes here. So if I'm looking for the median in this um, set of items here, you're going to see that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items. And the first thing that I have to do is I have to arrange them in order. And so I'm arranging them from lowest number to highest number. Um, but I have to make sure, I have to be careful, right? I have to make sure that I've got all of the numbers. There's 7 numbers, so I have to make sure that I've got all 7 listed, even if they have been used a couple of times. And so you'll see that I've got 2 4s here. And then to find the median number or that middle number, I just say, just start slashing here. Let's cross out equal items on both sides, and you're going to see that we have 3 items here. We have 3 items, or in this case numbers here, and the number that is directly in the middle number, which is going to be the median, is 4. So here we've got 7 numbers, right? Seven, again, I'm using numbers, I mean items, 7 items, which is an odd number. And so when you have an odd number of items, you're going to find that there is only going to be one middle um, number. Okay. Now, in our second example, you're going to see what happens when we have an even number of items. So, in our second example, we have an even number. We have 6 items, and let's take a look at that and let's find the median. And so we've got a 9, an 8, a 10, a 15, 3, and 7. And so again, we have to arrange them, arrange all the data in numerical order. And so we've done that. We went from smallest to largest. And notice what happens this time when I am finding that middle number. I'm finding that actually what I have to work with here are 2 numbers, right? So, and that's because it's an even set of items. So we have to do what we call let me put that in quotes over here, a mini mean. And we just looked at how to find the mean. And so what we have to do is we have to add those 2 middle numbers, 8 plus 9, which gives us 18. And 18 divided by 2, I'm sorry, that's my mistake. 8 plus 9 is 17. And 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. So our middle number, which is right in between the 8 and the 9 here, is going to be 8.5. And yes, it can be a decimal number. So be careful about that. And also be careful about your adding. You know, I added them together first. I got the wrong answer, and then I quickly corrected myself. So you want to be really, really careful as you're working through these. And you want to keep your math organized. You know, doing this math is really, I always tell students, make sure that you're keeping it organized. Okay, let's take a look at an example here. So pause the video and take a look at this example, and then restart the video and you can watch as I work through it. Okay, so let's take a look at our example here. It says the attendance for the community play for 6 nights is 150, 75, 125, 119, 115, and 206. Find the median or the median number of attendance. So there's a couple of things here that we want to take note of. We can note that it is 6 nights, and then that's six. That's an even number. So that tells me that I'm going to have to probably do a. I'm not probably. I'm going to have to do a mini mean, unless I can look at the numbers and see what that middle number is automatically. Sometimes that's easy to do. And then it's in the question, it says find the median, right? Find the median. And so I know how to do that now that we had gone through an example. So the first thing that I have to do is I have to arrange all of these items, these numbers, in this case, all the data in numerical order. And so one tip that I would suggest is that when you're doing this is and I always start with the smallest number. Is that just cross them out so that you make sure that you get um, all those numbers. So we'll start with 75, and then we've got 115 and 119 and 125 and 150 and 206. Okay, so we've got 6 nights, we've got 6 numbers. Now we're going to find the median. We've arranged them all this information in numerical order. We're going to find that middle number. We're going to see if well, we know we're going to have 2 in the middle because it's an even number here. So those 2 numbers in the middle are 119 and 125, and maybe we can figure out, right away what that number is. But If not, we have to do the little mini mean here. And so we're going to take 119, we're going to add 125, and then we're going to divide that by 2. And where's my calculator? Here it is. So let's go ahead and let's use our calculator to do that. And I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to clear the memory. And we've got 119 plus 125, and that gives us 244. But now we're going to divide that by 2. And so the mean of those 6 nights is going to be 122. And that is our median number. And that does fall between the 119 and 125. So that would be the 122 is the median for our example. Okay, so let's move on here. We've done mean, we've done median, and the next thing that we want to do is we want to take a look at mode. And let's look at mode here. Let me get myself rearranged. And let's just set that up there for a second while I grab my notes here, make sure I'm giving you all the good stuff here on mode. So mode is the most common item in the data set. I think I forgot a period there, so it'll bother me unless I put that period there. So let's go ahead and do that so it makes it a complete sentence. Um, so it's the most common item. Okay, it's the most thing. And mode is the one is the difference between one of the differences between mode and then mean and median is that sometimes when you're working with mode, it may be a number. Okay, so it may be a number in that set. The other thing is depending on what it is, it could be a word or it could be a letter. um, so there's all sorts of different. It's qualitative data. So it could be something other than a number, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so we'll look at an example of that as well. So it is the item that is the most common or the most often. When I look at mode, I look at the MO. That is kind of like my single signal here. Mo means most, so it's the most in the data set. So how, now we want to take a look at the how. How do we find a mode? Uh, it's if you have already arranged um, your items and from smallest to greatest, or um, if you've already kind of organized that, it's going to be easier. But I will say sometimes you can simply look at it and you can determine what that mode is. But you want to count the I'm sorry, let me start over. You want to count the number of times each item appears, and that's called a frequency. So if something, appears um, 3 times, then the frequency is 3. So the item with the highest frequency is the mode. That's really how to find the mode. But it says, there's a but here, but it is possible for an item set to have 2 modes or maybe no modes. So if all the items in the set have the same number of frequencies, in other words, let's say, for example, I'm working with 5 students, and they all are different ages. Well, then there is no frequency. Or if I'm, talking to family members and they all have different foods that they like to eat, there is no frequency. And so then the mode would be no mode. In just a moment. Okay, here's an example. Um, and so here it says the mode, basically, we're going to find the mode of this set of items. And so we can rearrange them. We can, take the time if we want to. And I think I'll do that here. We can take the time and order them. So we've got 1 And then it looks like we've got 3 4s. So 4, 4, and 4. And then we've got 6, 9, and 10. And so if we take a look at the item with the highest frequency, we can see very quickly um, in our list here that 4 is going to be the mode of this example. Okay, so again, I'd like you to pause the video if you like and take a look at this example. And then when you're ready, go ahead and restart the video and we'll take a look at it together. Okay, let's take a look at um, this example here. And it's asking us, it's saying, what is the mode in the following data set? And so we're looking at what is the mode, and mode means most often, right? It is the most common item. And we maybe can take a look at that. We could group these. And I'll just start. I'm going to start by D's. How many D's do I have? I've got 1, 2, 3 D's. Or I could go D and then I could put a 3 next to it. And then C's. I've got 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that. I've got 3 C's. And then I've got, looks like 1, 2 P's. And looks like I have an F and an H. So we have an F. Oops, there we go. Let's bring that up a little bit here. F. So there's 1 F and there's 1 H. So if we look at how to find the mode, it says we need to count the number of items and each number of times each item appears. We've done that. And then the item with the highest frequency is the mode. And you'll see that here we have 2 modes. This is an example of when we can have 2 modes because the D and the C both appear 3 times. So the mode for this example, the mode will be D and C for that. Okay, so that is mode. We've done mean, median, and mode. And we remember that those are all part of the measures of central tendency. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the measure of spread, which is range. And let's cover that up a little bit so we can take a look at range. And we'll start right in with the definition here of range. And range basically is in a list of data. It's the measure of spread between the lowest number and the highest number. Again, guess what? I missed my period. So I will go back and fix my lesson there. So it's the measure of spread, measure of spread. So if you're spreading butter, right, you're starting at one end and you're spreading it across. And in math, when you're looking at range, you're you're basically finding the largest number and the smallest number. So we're going to look at the how. So how do we find the range? If we have the range, and obviously it has to do with numbers, right? So this is going to be all about numbers. So subtract the lowest number in the data set from the greatest number. And then, well, I guess that's it. That's all you do. You locate, you find the largest number, you find the lowest number, and then you subtract them. So in our example here, you'll notice all these examples are pretty simple examples, and I do that purposely because I want to make sure that you understand the how to find the mean, median, mode, and range. And then in another video, we will get into some really um, good examples of GED type questions that involve all of these things. So here's our example. It says find the range, basically. So If I have a huge number of items or numbers, I could maybe arrange them, and if they're already arranged in order, if it's part of another question, then it's going to be easy to find. But in this example, it's very easy to find. 10 is the greatest number, and then 2 is the smallest number, and you simply subtract 10 minus 2 is going to be 8. And so the range in that set of numbers is simply 8. Now, will they be that easy on the test? No, I don't think so. They're going to be much larger numbers, and they're probably going to be in charts and graphs, or maybe a very wordy um, word problem. But if you can remember this, you will be fine on that. Here's an example. Go ahead, pause the video. This is the last example here that we're going to take a look at. And let's find the range in this set of numbers. And again, we'll remember that we have to find the largest number, find the smallest number, and then we have to subtract. Okay, so the greatest number, and I'm just going to circle it. And I'm going to put a G next to it. So the greatest number is 9. The largest number is 9. And so we know that from the largest number, we're going to subtract the smallest number. And if we look through this list of items or this list of numbers, we can very quickly see that -3 is the lowest number. I'll write that out so we don't confuse that with the greatest number. So we're going to subtract a -3. So 9 minus a -3 is going to be our range. And you'll notice this is a negative number, and we're subtracting a negative number. If you're not sure about working and subtracting negative numbers, you maybe want to check out the resources, and there are some worksheets on that so that you can practice that. But what I'm gonna demonstrate here is I'm gonna demonstrate adding the opposite. So I'm gonna change that subtraction to an addition. So I'm gonna add, and then I'm gonna take the opposite of a -3, which is a +3. And so we can see that the range then is going to be 12. So the difference, if I put this on a number line and I found 9 and then a -3, the distance between 9 and -3 is going to be 12. And so 9 minus a -3 is 12. And that is our range. And so I'm going to go ahead and circle that. So I hope this not so quick little lesson, but kind of a summary review of mean, median, mode, and range has helped you.